Recording in progress.
Hey, Les.
Howdy, HV. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent. I like your new icon. The Q World Order is what it says. I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Q World Order.
I've done a few podcasts this week. It's been a busy podcasting week. I just got off the phone to I'm a Fakeologist. We had a good chat.
Yeah. Awesome. But yes, he actually just reached out to me and said, thank you for Les, because I recommended, I was like, you need to get him on your show. I kind of went on a little diatribe about how you were a hero in this realm. I was like, you guys need to have him on. This is, I don't know why. I think that there was like a hesitancy to have you on. I still haven't figured it out. Nobody can really explain it. I think that people weren't quite sure you were legit, but you are, in fact, the most legit. And, I'm really glad to see more people asking you on. I don't know why. I don't know what the hesitancy was, but I was like, you guys got to get this guy on. We all know about him. Everybody knows about the guy who went to Ukraine. We've all heard about him, but get him on your show.
Yeah, no, I did listen to that show. Great show. Thank you for the praise and getting my name out there. Yeah, it happened. So yeah, it happened. We had a great chat.
Good.
Great chat.
Yeah, good energy there. He's open. Yeah, I wouldn't say he's all the way over where we are. And he just joined the RER Patreon. So hey, Ab, welcome. I wouldn't say he's all the way over in our side of the the way that we think, but it's very open-minded, great platform. I've had nothing but positive feedback from anything that I've gone in. I've said some wild stuff, so it's a safe space to just like share. So busy podcasting week for you. Tell me about that. Give me the overview. You kind of have gone through some lulls and, fits and spurts. When it's really hot, it's hot. And then sometimes it feels like nothing happening. So this is one of those times where it starts to ramp up. Tell me about that.
It's always, HV, it's always when I'm about to jack in and say, right, I'm retired now.
Yeah.
Just as a moment I'm about to put that out there.
Yeah.
The simulation just throws everything at me and it just... So I don't know what's going on now. I don't know if I'm... Man, let's go really woo-woo today. Maybe this is me manifesting it back into reality, Funny enough, I was listening to you and Rambo's latest one, great show, and you were talking about hands and the CGI hands. Have you seen... you don't go on YouTube much, but YouTube's little animation today is hands.
No.
Yeah.
What?
Just as you said it, after I listened to it, I went over to YouTube... And there they've got his dancing hands, these animated hands in the corner.
Oh my gosh! Whoa! And it says, "Give me a sign." That's if you hover over it.
Is that what it says? I didn't even know that.
If you hover over it, it says, "Give me a sign." Oh my gosh! And celebrate International Day of Sign Language. Okay, that's like a direct shout out to Rambo too.
Rambo, yeah.
Yeah, he knows sign language. Oh my god.
Yeah, no. Yesterday's show was one of them great shows. I think all of us wish we was on the conversation with you so we could jump in. I mean,
I wish we could. I wish we could all be on the same call at the same time for all the group Zooms. Oh, you missed the last group Zoom. We missed you.
I know. I stupidly assumed it'd be Sunday.
I know. Well, okay. So good assumption though. We had tried. We're going to do another one this month. We're going to do another one. Hopefully, yeah, maybe next weekend right under the deadline of before the end of the month. But that one will be on a Sunday. We wanted to try Saturday just because all of the other ones have been on a Sunday, and maybe there's someone out there who's just totally tied up on Sundays. So we were like, okay, we'll try it on Saturday. But the next one will be on Sunday, and hopefully you can join for that one.
Yeah. I know. Don't get me wrong. I can do Saturdays, but I was so not looking at stuff.
We got you in the routine.
Yeah. But I was also not looking at stuff because there was so much, obviously, loose harvesting going on with the Queen. I wasn't looking at my phone or TVs or anything. I like to step away from the black cube when it's really ramped up like that,
Oh, I do know. That's smart. I mean, talking about the Queen, you, other than Rambo, I've definitely wanted to pick your brain on... Well, first of all, okay, we started at the top with the Q World Order. Let me just say... Kudos to you. You were the first one to introduce the way of looking at Q from the spelling Queue. The whole Q, letter 17 phenomena, QAnon, Q drops, we've had that conversation. That's always kind of been bubbling. Like, what is this? What is this, LARP phenomena where we players can feel like we're part of the game by following these drops. It's a spectacle. It's an interactive spectacle, and we all trying to figure it out. But you introduced us. This is long before the Queen. This is even before you went to Ukraine.
My first ever Realized Radio appearance. I brought it up. Yeah.
Yes.
Good memory, HV.
Yes.
Good memory.
Well, I just love wordplay. I love my wordplay. And when you introduced this wordplay or this next layer of what Q means, and then you brought it specifically back then, you were bringing it in with this concept of the Disney world, how we are basically living in an amusement park and our whole lives are a queue waiting for the ride. We just have to get in line our whole lives. And this whole experience is kind of crafted like a Disney amusement park where everything kind of seems real, but it's on like this weird, purposefully engineered scale, and to give us this experience of reality that's totally fabricated. And essentially that's what this game called life is on a larger scale. And I don't know, you just kind of blew my mind. I know that me and Rambo, both of us were like, whoa, maybe I'll repost that first episode where we spoke with you, because I think, it's good to go back and listen to the things that we were bringing to the table way back when, because it usually comes, I say usually, but kind of always, it kind of seems to come back around. And
let me jump in there, HV. So yeah,
of course,
Disney, when it comes to the psychology of queuing, standing in a line for a ride, the experts at this, without a doubt, are Disney. They've spent the most money in, and the most time in researching the psychology of how to make people stand in a queue and be entertained, and how to make it a more of a easier process, because that was their biggest problem. And they've got a whole spectrum of tricks they use, like snake in a queue is one of them, so you never really see
psychological tricks,
down to psychological, entertainment. One of the first ever banks had such a large queue, they used to pay a piano guy to be next to the queue, so it'd make people less agitated and stuff. Okay, sometimes even like lavender scents they'll spray, UV lighting, all of this entertainment. It's pure entertainment. Or equally, you can flip that round. They know what to do to ease you, so then they know what to do to piss you off. So like in the Scamdemic, they threw away all them tricks and they've done the opposite. They made your queue extra long. They made you see how long you were waiting. They gave you no idea, to piss you off. So they can up and down your level. It really is that simple. And every psyop, from the Great Depression to Ration Book Britain to the USSR, it all requires the NPCs and the masses standing in a queue. Now, I had my validation this whole thing with the Queen, because #the Q or #Q was trending.
Yeah.
And HV, I need to show you a thread at some point, but basically a woman done the exact same thread as I did with Ukraine, but with her standing in the queue going to see the Queen.
Really? What was some of her observations?
Have you got time to look at it right now?
Yes. Send me the link.
If you go to Twitter, and you go to @NowThenSunshine, one word. It'll be her pinned tweet.
@NowThenSunshine. Let's see. There are very few people I do this for, but it seems I'm on the train to London. Okay, here it is. Here comes a rolling thread about the queue. Of course, the first image is pure purple, the EMR.
And look at the train. Look at the train number.
222022.
When did the Ukraine war start? 22nd of the 2nd.
2202.
It's almost like the simulation is trolling us so hard.
Oh my god.
But anyway, we don't need to go through the whole thread, but if you have a look, she's doing what I done. And every tweet, she #the Q, #the Q, #the Q. And I'm like, this is it, guys. With the Q movement, with the Trump one, it was a metaphorical Q. You weren't actually standing in a queue, you were doing it all in your mind. But equally, here is a literal queue. These NPCs went down to London. They don't even know why they went, but they just went.
She said, I'm sorry, I'm going through a thing, but like it's empty. It's empty. She says the end of the queue entails walking up and down and up and down and up and down several thousand snaking barriers. Exactly what you said. There's literally no need for us to walk up and down every single one, but walk it we must because we are queuing.
That's
it's empty. Like no one is there.
That's the queue for the queue.
Oh, the line for the line. Oh my gosh. I love it. I mean, I guess there are people now it's showing, but and then of course she goes by Shakespeare's Globe. Of course they had to snake by the Globe Theater. Oh goodness. Oh, this is kind of giving me some intense memory because all the places where she's by the Shakespeare Theater and here by the water. These are all the places I walked with my mom when I went to London in 2018. So just visually, I'm like, hey, I know that spot. Hey, I know that bridge. Hey, I know that spot.
Funny enough, that lady went with her mum.
Really?
Yeah.
I did get to revisit all of that with my mom because when we went into she's obsessed with the royals. She's obsessed, and that's all we did. Really, we did all the tourist stuff that you could possibly imagine as it relates to the royals. So all the towers of the Tower of London, the crown jewels, the Kensington Palace, like any place that you can get in as a tourist and buy a ticket and queue up and wait in line. We did all of those, and she loved it. She just loved it, and I did too. At that time, I wasn't seeing purples, I wasn't seeing fakery. I was just along for the ride, and because I had not woken up yet, but kind of looking back now on everything that we saw and the way that it's all presented, it's all just a show. It's all just for tour. It's all a tourist show.
It's a Disney line. You're in a Disney line.
It's a Disney experience. The royal family is a Disney fairy tale, experience. It's a fairy tale.
Because even the Queen lying in state was pretty much like Sleeping Beauty in the castle. That was the end point of it. You got to see Sleeping Beauty in the castle. And
lying. Shout out to you, Les, for bringing that to the table. Of course, she's lying in state.
She's been lying in state since the beginning, I'd say.
I know. Yeah. They all have but people ask me, they're like, how does this work? How does the royal family work? Are there any real royals? It's a great question. I do think that there's, just like Hollywood, there's a real Hollywood system. There's real folks, real directors, real actors, real makeup artists, real special effects artists. There's a real Hollywood engine, but at the very, 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 very top, the biggest and brightest stars, I think those are characters. Same goes for politics. On your local level, everyone's real. It's reality. I mean, they could be playing out parts that they don't quite realize, but these are real people. These are real people in the role of mayor. Real people in the role of city comptroller. But once you get to a certain level, president, prime minister, these highest of highs, I think that these are pure characters, really designed for just this thing. Not really. They don't have real lives behind them. I think they're fictional characters that come on the scene and then exit the scene, and that's how I think the Queen is. But there could very well be below the Queen, below what we call like the direct ascension to the throne. There's a whole working network of real working royals, that go to their families are in, distant relatives of this quote unquote royal bloodline. But that I think is like playing out like a title over a lifetime, that you just believe this family story. And I don't know, I think you kind of get born into that element of it, and it feels very real, and it is very real, but you still never get to the very, very, very top. Something about the top being empty, the highest echelon being absent. Kind of like the idea of 33-degree Mason. There is no 33rd-degree Mason. Yet we all hear about it. Like the very, very top. And below that, there are levels of masonry. You can be 1st-degree Mason. You can be 4th-degree Mason. You can be 8th-degree Mason. You can be 32nd-degree Mason. But there is no 33-degree Mason. Like what we think is the highest of the high is empty. Yeah. I don't know. Something about that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, I mean, it's an endless kind of investigation. How would you ever really know? Unless you got to the Queen and she's dead now, but whoever pinned them down and pulled their mask off, how would you know? How would you know? Unless you lived with them, did you go to school with them? Did you grow up with them? Have you seen them consistently since they were born to where they are now? No one has. No one's been with Joe Biden that long to confirm that he's a real person, or he hasn't died, or he ever existed in the beginning. And this is how it is. And it's kind of almost impossible to prove. This is why I think we got to get a lot of resistance on this topic, because I can't prove any of this. I can only look at the little things like the line under the chin that might be a mask, and there's certain digital stuff, but ultimately we can never. I don't know. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Like,
yeah, sometimes it kind of feels like a fool's errand because we can't give ourselves that concrete. You know, I haven't yanked on her neck and pulled off that silicone mask. So you're right. I don't have that element of victoriousness where I can say, see here, look at her mask. For me, it's more of a generalized understanding, an understanding that once I came to this way of thinking, it just felt right for me. It felt right for me when nothing else had felt right. Just that little, couldn't explain it, didn't really have a vocabulary for it, couldn't really put my finger on why it didn't feel right. But now, with this new way of seeing it, in all the language, like the decoding of the language, just listening to how she's described on the radio during the funeral and in the news articles, everyone's talking about, you know, the great project, the monarchy as being a great project, being a great myth. These are real news outlets using this wink. I mean, the language is getting less and less wink and more overt, that this is all just for show. You know, they're starting to use the word theater when it comes to war. They're starting to use the word theater when it comes to the monarchy. They're starting to use the word theater when it comes to even Corona. You know, I saw an article on sterilization theater. You know, is it time to put an end to sterilization theater where we're wiping down services and stuff? They literally called it theatrics because it doesn't do a damn thing. You know, the ritualistic wiping of surfaces doesn't do a damn thing. It's just in the mind. So I think that it's, you know, it's not just one thing, it's everything. You know, it's all these ways we look. And for me, it was, you know, in her own right, it was a queen. It was John Benet Ramsey, beauty queen, who opened my mind to this way of looking at the world. You know, once I kind of cracked my illusion, my personal illusion, open through the discovery I had with her, like everywhere I looked, it looked different. And thankfully, thank goodness for Rambo to have, you know, you and Rambo too, but even in the early days, Rambo, you know, being able to just, you know, share this stuff, especially with the Queen, to talk to someone who's, you know, really in it and living it and has this closer connection with it as far as, you know, spiritually and symbolically being over there. It was neat to hear that he was onto this as well. And he even had, you know, he met Prince Charles as part of his personal story is when he was in school, he got to meet, quote unquote, Prince Charles. And he always held that very dear. And now with a new lens, he's able to, I mean, this is his story. I don't want to retell his story, but he's told this on the show. You know, he was able to see now, looking back, hindsight, that he didn't really see Prince Charles. You know, he was just close enough to be like, oh, that looks like Prince Charles, you know, but he didn't get to, you know, we never get close enough to really check. We just get what we need to verify the illusion, you know, and that's as close as we can typically get. That's as close as we're allowed to get, is just enough to verify the illusion. But you mentioned earlier, you know, the queuing is how everything is going down. One of your most significant parts, I thought, about your adventures in Ukraine was when you were at the train station and you could literally see how they had simply closed certain doors. All they did, the only difference was they closed certain doors so that everybody had to get in a specific line. What would have been a nice, manageable, typical amount, you know, regular situation with the lines, people getting in regular lines, and it not seeming like a mass onslaught of human bodies, you know, instead they closed certain doors and made everybody get in this one specific line so that the experience of being shoulder to shoulder, you know, all huddled up, moving in unison down this never to end line. Where are we going? How long will it take? These uncertainties, you know, kids are crying, they're huddled with their mother, the fear, you know, it's intense. It's an intense experience.
That's real human trafficking right there.
Oh my God.
That's human trafficking. They're trafficking you through their little rat run where they've got the cameras set up. But yeah, man, and they also obviously planned the trains. They shut down the amount of trains going, and they planned it so you would land, your train would arrive during a curfew. So then you couldn't leave the train station. So instead of just walking off and going and find yourself a hotel, you'd all have to stay at a train station. And obviously CNN and that would film a train station with people sleeping, and yeah, you were forced to participate in a refugee queue. So yeah, again, another example of queuing. The very boring but effective way of bringing a psyop to life is the queuing. That's what's very real about the illusion, is the queue you're in.
I wonder if standing in a line, like, I know human beings are born with certain aversions. Every human being is born with a fear of falling and a fear of loud noises. It causes an instant jolt reaction within our body, even if we have no input on why. Like, if you're a baby and you hear a loud noise, you will have a visceral reaction, like a startling, your shoulders will come up, and you don't have any knowledge of why. You don't know what to be scared of yet, but still there's like an innate born into. Okay, so we're born with certain aversions. I wonder if standing in line is somehow like the least human thing we can do.
Yes.
Somehow, like the worst. It's like the worst way to spend humanity is being in a line, like forming into a line and following in a line and doing a uniform procedure. There's something about it. Like, we need, like, as individual as we are, I feel like something about huddling us all into a line is de-individualizing, dehumanizing us somehow. I mean, I'm making a big leap.
No. Well, according to the Q theorists and psychologists, the experts in queuing, yes, humans do not like queuing, especially when there's an uncertainty about it, like how long you're going to be there. So back according to them, back in New York, back when they started having office jobs, and there would be a queue for the lift. What do they call it in America? The elevator.
Yeah, elevator. Yep.
They would, apparently people were killing each other and stabbing each other and shooting each other because they were getting so stressed out. And that's when someone came along and decided to put a little dial on the top of the lift, to let you know where it is. Because giving the humans, letting them know how long it's going to be, puts them at ease. It's when there's uncertainty, that's when they go crazy. So you've got to think about it in the next psyop. They could say fuel's running out, get people to queue up at fuel stations, and that's when all fights happened, and that's when it looks like it's Mad Max, because they know the psychology. And when it comes to conspiracy theory, people have all got these grand ideas of viruses that are going to kill everyone and death rays, and it might all be true. But I'm saying it doesn't have to be that far. They can just get the masses to stand in a queue for toilet paper or fuel, and that's all you got to do to fuck up society.
Right.
Because we're that fragile. And I know from my own experience, I look at all the little arguments in the street I've had. It's when someone's cut up in a queue, disrespected a queue.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey man, there's a queue here, and then next thing you know, you're shouting at someone in the street, and you're like, whoa.
It's these little things that are the psychological killers.
The most simplest things are the most effective always.
Yeah. Waterboarding? Do you remember when waterboarding was top of the table when everyone was talking about that? Especially, I think George W. Bush was president, and this was during the time of 9/11, and we were interrogating the terrorists, quote unquote.
Yep.
And waterboarding was bandied about as like the most extreme exercise of human torturing on the table. It was the most extreme. And when you actually find out what waterboarding is, it's simply just covering someone's face with a cloth and dripping water onto it.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's it, y'all. But something about that, it sounds simple, but something about that triggers within us this deeply seated fear system and anxiety and adrenaline system, and it becomes quickly intolerable. You quickly feel like you are literally drowning.
Yeah.
Just from just from water. And you aren't. You're never at risk of death. You cannot die from waterboarding. Unless they're doing it wrong. Unless they actually strangle you.
This sounds sick, but I kind of want to try it. Because I want to, it's kind of, I find it hard to believe.
Oh my God. Okay, the first realized radio experiment. You heard it here, folks. You heard it here, folks.
No, but you get...
But it just causes sensation. It triggers the gag reflex for most people, which is people hate getting their gag reflex triggered, you know?
I mean...
and then it causes a drowning sensation. Doesn't cause drowning, sensation, which is terrifying. But yeah. Man, we should do it. Oh my God.
Just for a split second.
HumanVibration jailed for human rights violations. Oh my gosh. Uh-oh.
It's one of them things when I hear about it, I think, no way, man. But it must be true because it's used. And I would think like at some point your body would realise you're not drowning. But obviously not. But so I'd love to do it just for 1 second, 2 seconds. So I can be like, oh my God, yeah, it really is what they say it is. I really felt like I was drowning, and yeah. Because when you think...
Let me read you the procedure real quick. You tell me if you want to do this. In this procedure, the individual is bound securely to an inclined bench, which is approximately 4 feet by 7 feet. There's that 4'7". An individual's feet are generally elevated. A cloth is placed over the forehead and the eyes. Water is then applied to the cloth in a controlled manner. As this is done, the cloth is lowered until it covers both the nose and the mouth. Once the cloth is saturated and completely covers the mouth and the nose, airflow is slightly restricted for 20 to 40 seconds due to the presence of the cloth. So it makes it a little bit harder to breathe because you have a cloth over your face. During those 20 to 40 seconds, water is continuously applied from a height of 12 to 24 inches, so dropped from slightly above. After this period, the cloth is lifted and the individual is allowed to breathe unimpeded for 3 to 4 full breaths. This procedure may then be repeated. The water is usually applied from a canteen cup or a small watering can with a spout. And then the procedure usually lasts about 20 minutes by any one application. So you kind of like constrict breathing and then allow breath, and constrict breathing and allow breath. This is, God. Okay, so guys, this little procedure where all we're doing is restricting breath, dropping on some. This doesn't sound that bad, but apparently. This is the worst torture known to man. And we get those, those drawings when we're kids of history books showing those, those garrote situations where like a horse is on one side and a horse on the other side and it's pulling the people's arms and legs and, it's like...
Hung, drawn and quartered where they...
Yeah, apparently this was used in the Spanish Inquisition. The waterboarding was used historically in the West. It's known, more recently, but it was also told to be used in the Spanish Inquisition. So this is not, again, historically, this is kind of like something that's in our narrative. But
we always go to, we always end up talking about dark subjects. HG, I don't know what it is.
We really do.
But the alternative would be, pulling your fingernails off, drilling through your teeth, electrocuting your bollocks. Now, I don't know, surely on day 14 of being waterboarded, I would think, surely you'd like to think your mind is sort of, okay, I'm going to live through this. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to die, it's not that bad. And what I would do is I'd carry on screaming, making out as the worst thing in the world. So they carried on waterboarding me instead of switching me over to the pulling off my finger. Because they might say, the waterboarding's not good for him anymore.
It's not working for this guy,
yeah.
let's get the drills out.
Yeah. You get what I'm saying? So I would start acting, and they do teach you that in special forces. They teach you what to do when you get caught, and you do have to ham it up. You have to start acting. You have to start acting like you're really beaten, like you're really dizzy. You have to be called what's the grey man, they call it. You have to become the grey man. You're neither here nor there. You're just a dumb soldier following orders. And when they start asking you about your political beliefs, you're like, I don't really know. I'm just a soldier. I'm here for money. I don't really know. Here's my name and rank, that's it. And so, and that in itself, the grey man. Funnily enough,
I wonder if they just tell soldiers, they give this as an exercise to tell soldiers that they need to be prepared for this. Yeah. But no soldier's really going to get No soldier is really going to be a prisoner of war.
No.
Like I think that's a psyop in its own self. So telling the prisoners, okay, if this happens, when this happens, this is what you need to do. That's just, even though it's never going to happen, that's just genius.
They simulate it as well. They do it to themselves.
Yeah, they simulate it.
So regardless of whether the enemy catches them or not, they've done it to themselves in training.
Training's always the hardest part of military exercise. The preparation, the training. That's just, that's more real, if not, it's like just as real as, my dad was in the Marines, and part of his training, he always told me that the scariest part of his entire experience was when he was training, he had to be dropped from a helicopter into the ocean at midnight in the pitch black, and you didn't know which direction you were facing, and you were carrying all of this 40 pounds of tactical gear, it's ice cold water, and you have no idea which way land is, and if you pick the wrong direction, you're dead. That's what they're told. In reality, no one's gonna die. There's no way these people are gonna die. In reality, you just jump into cold water and you get basically psychologically tortured for a bit, and then led to where you're supposed to go. But at no point is anybody truly at risk of life. But it felt like it, and I've always thought that. I always thought it was kind of curious how when my dad he didn't talk about the war really at all, but the few times he did, it was the training that stuck with him as the most terrorizing part of the whole experience, of the things that he had to do to prepare.
The training is the funnest part of the military. Other than that, it's a very boring job, and the vast majority of people leave the second they can. Like I know in the British military, they've always had a problem of trying to keep soldiers to stay.
Yeah.
And they try and always incentives, like they usually wait till right the last minute to give you a pay rise, and then just before you have the ability to leave, they'll offer you like a 22-year contract with great money. They'll offer you like holidays, trips abroad, all of these things to try and keep soldiers in. And the main reason soldiers leave is because it's boring. Yeah. War is boring, soldiering is boring, and that's one thing they don't tell you. They spend millions every year on the recruitment campaign to make it look exciting. Every year, 17 million on new posters, brochures. Yeah. If it was a fun job, exciting job, they wouldn't have to do that. The fact they've got to try and sell you on it being exciting means it's not exciting. And I tried to join the military, and listen to this. Here's a conspiracy for you. I was doing okay and everything. They said, yeah, you can join. There was a few hurdles and that. I went and done their IQ test. It's called a BARB test, the British Army battery test. And it's just it's like one of them brain training games where it's not only getting it right, it's how quick you answer. It's like Bob is fatter than Joe, who is thinner. Steve is faster than Gary, who is slower. And you've got to answer really fast. And I done it, and the guy was like, wow, man, this is really high. He's like, this is 62. I've never seen this high before. I was like, oh yeah, thanks. And then guess what? They done everything they could to not let me in the military.
Because you were too quick.
It was almost like having a high IQ was
Yeah. You were a thinking man. Oh my gosh. Well, okay, this reminds me. The mind-numbing process. There is a day, Army soldiers, before an Army soldier can deploy with their unit, they go through this process called an SRB, Soldier Record Brief. And it's a day where basically, it's a day-long event, and you basically have to stand in line to get your vaccine. Then you have to stand in line to get your identification cards, like your military tags, your record cards. Then you have to stand in line for a hearing exam and vision test, and probably type of IQ test that you were talking about. Then you have to stand in line to speak with the attorney you have to actually create a will for yourself. You have to, before you can be deployed to active duty, if you don't have a will, you have to do it that day. You have to draft a will. You have to wait another line to give someone a power of attorney over the will. You have to wait another line to then make arrangements for your children. You have to wait in another line to take a picture in front of an American flag. You have to wait in another line to talk about life insurance and talk about your burial if death does occur. Like, it's a whole day where you're basically doing it's this mind, it's so boring. It's just waiting in line. But the things that the things that you're doing have so much gravity, even though you're never going to have to cash in on this, even though you're never going to need that will while you're in the Army because you're not going to die, but like the things you're doing feel so weighty that it's like waiting. Oh my God, I'm waiting in line to do my will. Ooh, that means I might die. So the whole time you're thinking about your own impending death, you know?
While standing in a queue.
While standing in a queue, and several. It's a whole day of queuing. And it's I think that day is like its own little, you know, psychological warfare.
Oh, yeah.
Soldier record brief. Yeah, a whole day of just signing along.
When I first moved to the countryside, the West Country's got like a big military presence, like a lot of bases. And anyway, I was doing a lot of construction work on army bases, and I remember one day I kept coming in and I'd go for lunch and I'd see all these guys standing around all kitted up, infantry soldiers all kitted up, waiting around. Next day I saw them all waiting around. Next day I saw them, it's something like day 13, I finally asked them, I said, what are you guys doing every day waiting? And they're like, oh, we have to get ready for an exercise we're going to do, but it keeps getting cancelled. And I was like, oh my God, that's 13 days you've sat around all ready to go and then told at 2:00, oh, it's not going on, go and do some physical exercise, guys. And that's the army summed up. And also another thing, I used to do bouncer work in army towns. Mm-hmm. And a common thing I used to see was soldiers just sitting there with their heads in their hands, just like, what am I going to do? Like, and I go and chat to them, I say, what's up? And they pretty much, in a different way, would say like, army life is terrible, I want to get out. And then that was for me. I was like, shit, man, this is. I wanted to join this at one point. I was like, I'm so glad that me and the army never connected, because they would not have liked me and I would not have liked them, and I probably wouldn't have got past day fucking 10, because I can't deal with that shit. I don't know. Like, it's just not for me. Like standing around.
Right. Without asking questions. Without asking, what are we doing? What the hell are we doing here? What? But you know, some people never. They never ask questions about anything they're doing. They just willingly go along with nonsense. But they don't know. They don't ever recognize that it doesn't really make sense and it doesn't seem to be I don't know. Yeah, just people just blindingly, you kind of see this line psychology is so, I'm glad we're talking about queuing in lines, because it's so fascinating. Even at the grocery store, people will just kind of be like waiting in line for a line that doesn't even, that's like not even going to go anywhere. Like they'll just be waiting, and I'm always like looking for the fastest one. Like let me get out of this line and go on that one. And I'm trying to not have that mindset. I'm trying to just like waiting and just kind of be patient, and that's really a better way to be. But I noticed that people will they don't even think. They'll just kind of wait, and like maybe the line's already closed and they're just kind of still waiting. They haven't even like thought about. Or line psychology when you can break into multiple lines to make things quicker, but people don't because they don't want to lose their place. But it's like this will be quicker for everyone. I don't know. Kind of strange.
It's a big part of our life, and I don't think It's
and
also
don't cut in line. Don't cut in line.
Yeah.
That whole narrative. Yeah, we're taught as a very early child to cut in line is like the worst thing you can do. I wonder why that is. Cutting in line.
Well, it's social disorder, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're not playing the game. You're elevating yourself above someone else, and people don't like that,
Right. And I mean, again, we're talking about how the waiting in the line is what's key and critical. So if someone's trying to bypass that, well, that's no good. No, it's less about being good to your fellow human, and more about we need you to wait in this line for psychological reasons that we're not going to share, but we need you to be in line and be bored by it and be agitated by it and want to get out of the line. That's an important part of this human experiment. Yeah, waiting in line, queuing. What do you think is the next with Q in general, like the letter Q, with QAnon?
QAnon. I don't know, but I was speaking to Emily Moyer the other day over on Off Planet Media, and she was saying the reason that people aren't getting what you're saying is because they don't use the term queuing in America. They use the term standing in line. Is that
we use Q? We use queuing.
You do.
We don't use it, but we're familiar with it.
Yeah. Apparently, in America, it's only QUE as well. Is that true?
Yes. No, actually, CUE is to cue a actor or performance on stage, a thing done or said that serves as a signal, like cue the lights or cue the sound. That's CUE. But Q as in line has always been QUEUE, always.
I heard Dr. Q, I think his name's Frederick Larson, he's like the expert on queuing, say that He said it was a difference. He said I remember him referencing saying he said like if he was playing Scrabble in Britain, that would be a great one because, you know, it's it's the most unnecessary UE added to anything.
Well, QUE means tail. QUE means tail, but okay, I'm just looking at this. This is new for me. I'm looking it up. QUE doesn't mean anything in English. It means something in Spanish. It means K. It means what in Spanish? But QUE is not an English word. QUE. Yeah, it's Spanish. But the line Q. I mean, we're really nitpicking now. But QUEUE has always been line, arranging in a queue. But again, we don't use it very often, and there are multiple words around that. I could see how you could get confused because we've got Q, we've got Q, we've got Q, CUE, we've got Q the letter, we've got Q the long word. I could see how someone could maybe, yeah. And it's here's a thing. It says, you know, is Q short for Q? Is QUE short for QUEUE? It's Merriam-Webster. No, the definition of Merriam-Webster says QUE is not the word for Q. Anyway, we're getting in the weeds, but yeah, that could have been just a mix-up for spelling. Yeah, it's officially and always has been QUEUE, a word meaning line.
Yeah. I mean, if anyone's got like a spare afternoon, it's worth like googling Q theory and like the dark art of time manipulation, because it's all about time manipulating as well. Another thing Disney would do is they would tell you that the queue is 45 minutes when it's actually only 30 minutes, giving the person in line the false sense that they are winning, they are beating the queue, they are ahead of time.
Yeah,
and that's
great point. That's another psychological.
Yeah, and that's what the Trump Q movement did quite well. It gave constantly people.
It gave all these little promises and yeah. You know, I think it's kind of interesting too. We were just dissecting all the different words that mean, but the CUE, like cue lights, cue sound, cue staging, that's theatrical. You know,
that's part of it. Yeah,
it is. And when you're waiting in line, so to bring it all together, like when you're waiting in these Disney lines, you know, you round a corner and then a whole new scene. You're in a whole new scene. You know, like these lines are really kind of immaculate when it comes to the visualization. Like you're almost in the ride sometimes within the line because there's these sceneries that you wait in this room which has a scene, and then you move to the next room which has a scene, and then you're finally on the ride, 45 minutes later or whatever. But you know, there's almost like a cueing of lights, cueing of sound, cueing of, you know, visual theatrics. So the cue and the cue kind of do relate, especially when you're waiting in line, because certain things get cued as to certain points that you're in it. I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all that cue also relates to theatrics. You know, these are all spelling, you know, we're talking about homonyms, things that sound the same, but are different meanings. Yeah. And also, oh my gosh, another word that kind of goes in, it doesn't get that same pronunciation, but coup, COUP, a word that refers to a violent and sudden overthrow, takeover of the government. Coup. So
yeah.
I don't know.
It's all. Yeah, I mean, it's all connected. People are saying it. You got to remember, people might be saying, "Oh, the Q movement," but they're saying the Q movement, like Q action. You go and do this now. The phonic. You know, forget about what we're writing down on paper. The phonic sound is still Q. They're committing a Q in Cuba. You know, you're still saying the word, aren't you? Phonetically, it's the same vibration coming out.
Yes, and I think that's genius. I think that's a very astute. I think a lot of our words are spells. We've talked about this, and we don't even know. We don't realize when we're saying these kind of everyday words, even like good morning. You know, good morning. I think it's like a dark spell we're casting on people. Mourning being, you know, the state of a death in mourning. Something about it, like this is getting kind of, we're back to the woo-woo stuff, but there are certain words that we say that I think have vibratory significance, and we may think we are imbuing a certain meaning with these words, but in reality, there's a higher order that we're just not seeing. There's a higher inference, there's a higher meaning, there's a higher method. The vibration of this word, we may think we're just having a nice chat, but we're actually sending out some pretty significant symbols, like almost like Morse code into the like beep 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 beep. Like if you know how to pick that up, you can hear a language. If you don't know how to pick it up, it's just beeps, it's just a bunch of beeps. But if you can translate that, it's just, and so we're saying a bunch of stuff that we think has specific meaning, but somewhere else there could be a translation happening or a receiving of these vibes that are much different than what we're actually than what we think we're talking about. There's a
do you know there. Funny you bring that up. In World War II, apparently the Morse code people were so good that they could tell who they were talking to on the other end.
Really? Like just by the beeps?
Just by the beeps, and they could tell when someone had been like captured or taken because the beeps were different. They were that good at recognizing beeps that they knew what agent they were talking to without the agent having to say their name, because you would never beep over who you are. You just say, aircraft carrier leaving Britain on the floor, and they were so good at that. Yeah, it was called they called it the fist. It was someone's fist. Like instead of a pen, it was a fist.
Interesting. Oh. Ooh, I like that.
And also I remember being in Thailand that they used to have silent retreats. So you go to somewhere for 2 weeks and just not talk, and that sounds great, man. That sounds.
I know, that actually sounds really, really wonderful. I've almost done something. It was right when Corona hit, and so I had to cancel. But it was called a 10-day, and it's with it's a type of meditation program called Vipassana meditation. And there's a 10-day retreat, and it's free. They have it's free, and you just kind of donate if you want to at the very end. But it's a 10-day total meditation. You don't speak one word, and you're just guided through these meditative practices throughout the days. And then they feed you, and you have a place to sleep. And then in the next day, 10 days of basically silent meditation, and you can't say one word. That sounds, for me, everyone in the audience is like, how the hell is HV gonna not talk for 10 days? Guilty. But I think it would be wonderful for my brain to have a reset like that, to not talk, and I really should look back into doing that. Meditation's always great, and silence, I think it's a reset. It could be like a reset on your brain.
Yeah.
In a good way.
One of the things I loved about being in a foreign country is that I couldn't talk to anyone. Like, that's one of the, and it's all pointing and smiles, and I think it is a great reset for your brain just to not have to hear and talk, and just I think it's quite healthy to do now and again. In fact, I might, man, if I had the money, I would go and spend the winter in, I don't know, the southern hemisphere, and just so but no, hey, I know what you mean. Like, would it be I don't know, would it be good for you, HV? How do you reckon I reckon you'd probably be really good at it.
I think I would love it. I think I would love it. I think I would get really, really into it and just be the best, the most quiet person. Sometimes I get a little competitive with myself, and I can get really into these things. So I think I would take it very seriously, and I would do it. Not talking, that seems kind of wonderful, just a reset on the brain. And there is something that comes in stillness and silence. There's, just like, you can't see patterns in water until the water is still. You can't see like a lake. You can't see to the bottom of a lake unless it's still. You can't. The clarity comes from stillness. We know this in water, and we're made up of water. They say we're like 80% water. So I think that there's something translated. I think that there's a stillness in our body systems and in our minds when we invite quiet and stillness, which in this day and age is kind of hard to do. It's really difficult to find peace and quiet, and to allow yourself, because even when we do have peace and quiet, what do? We put in music, we turn on the radio, we watch a TV, we'll do whatever. We seem to do anything to avoid stillness and silence in our everyday lives. I'm so guilty of that. I have headphones in all day long listening to stuff. I never really allow myself silence, but I think that there is something so beautiful and wonderful. And, we talk about getting downloads as being in this community. Like, sometimes we just get things, boop, into our mind. I've had a few. And those times have always been when I am practicing stillness and silence, when I'm Like my John Benet Ramsey stuff, I got that delivered to my brain like a fully formed data packet on January 8th, 2020. But I got that after I had been for every night in January. So leading up to that, like 8th night, I had been doing this meditation. And like I was doing this infrared sauna blanket thing that I'd gotten for Christmas. And anyway, so I was like doing that for an hour every night, just not even listening to headphones, not even doing anything, just kind of like meditating in stillness and just doing this thing. And something about that created just enough. It like allowed me to receive, like my internal waters became clear enough, maybe to allow for something to be received by me. I don't know, something to it. So I need to get back there. I need to get back to that stillness and that quiet. And I really don't allow myself any quiet unless I'm going to bed, because I'm always listening to stuff, whether it's listening back to, everything I record, if I'm going to post it, I have to listen to it like 3 times, I have to listen once for content, once for edit, and then once again, just to make sure it's good to post. I'm kind of weird in that way. Like that's why sometimes I record and it takes me hours to post. Rambo's like, are you going to post that? And it's like, yeah, I got to listen one more time, So I never really allow myself silence or quiet. You're making me really want to take a little egg. Yeah, I got to get away.
Do you, I probably asked you this 1,000 times, but I'm going to ask you again. Do you have a conversation in your head with yourself?
Oh, yeah. Constantly.
I have like the greatest podcasts with myself, interviewing myself.
The best.
And then once I set up to record and think I just need to do like a monologue, it just can't come out. It's just no way near as good as the free flowing, and I can even insert myself into like your podcasts or other people's podcasts. I can press pause and answer the fucking question and end the podcast by myself. And I wonder, am I freaking nuts? Am I nuts, or are we all doing this?
We all do this. I can't tell you how many times I have been interviewed by Joe Rogan in my mind.
Yeah.
So many times. Yeah, and each interview goes a little bit different. But they've all been successful. But yeah, I know what you mean. Sometimes when I'm listening to you, you and Rambo recorded recently. Sometimes I listen to these things, or it was I was listening to Rambo too on the he was interviewed by he has on the Sunday Sessions podcast, and I do the same thing. I'll listen and I'll be like, I'll be trying to interrupt even when I'm not on the show. Guilty. Yeah, I'm really bad at that. I'm trying to get better at the interrupting thing.
Do you know what we should do?
I realized that. What? Go ahead.
I know. I've heard you say this many, many a time. I think it's your own perfectionism. I think nobody cares. I think everyone loves how you operate. But having said that, next time we record, we should do the thing where it's like the metaphor of like holding a spoon. Like I can't talk unless you're holding the spoon. And basically, when the other person's going, you just write down the notes of the bullet point, the notes you're going to bring up, and then. Yeah, maybe we'll try that. I'd like to try that as well. It's training.
That. I was never even good at that game in kindergarten when they were like, you need to be holding the special shoe before you can talk. And I'd be like, nope, I'm talking. No. But I think that actually is.
Because
I think there's a reason that concept, only the person holding the special fire stick can speak. There is something to giving all of the attention and energy to a certain space and knowing that that's like a safe space, and that I think allows the best stuff to come out of the person who is speaking, because they know that they're not always like waiting to be interrupted, or they can like get it out. It gives them like room to let those thoughts unravel.
Because I'm going to guess you're pretty good at taking notes as you're going.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at taking notes. Yeah. Here's my little notepad. I haven't taken notes on this call, but they're usually kind of just all around the page. But I'm good at following them. Just words and numbers and symbols for myself that don't mean anything to anybody else, but that helps me. Yeah, I have my own version of note taking. So people would used to ask to borrow my notes and stuff, and like in school, and the notes only work for me. It's like this is not going to help you whatsoever. This is not going to help you, with your because I didn't whenever I take notes from like a professor or something, I didn't write down word for word what they said, because that doesn't help me. I have to actively listen and then write down my own little symbols, my own little things that help me, like, that are like keystone markers. So when I look back at that symbol, I can remember exactly, oh, that's when he said da 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 da, and I can hear it back in my head.
Yep.
I can't, if I'm trying to word for word write down what anybody is saying, I'm not actively listening, and then I go back and I read what they said, and I'm like, I didn't remember them saying that, because I didn't actually, so I'm different with how I learn. We all have different ways of learning, but I love that, the writing of notes. Actually, I do love that. I could listen, write down my notes, and then once I get my special spoon or fire stick or whatever, then I could talk.
Yeah, because what we naturally do is, once we hear someone take a little pause, we assume that they've finished what they're talking about, and we enter. Whereas maybe someone might just be like gathering their next thought, but this is every podcast universally.
But I'm especially guilty. We can say that. This is a safe space. This is a safe space to talk about the things that I need to improve on. There was one episode, it wasn't even that long ago, where poor Rambo didn't get one word in. Everything he said. And he was trying to talk about stuff with his hometown. And I'm jumping in there like I know what the hell I'm talking about. I was cringing. I apologized to him after. I apologized. I think it was just like in the episode 60s. We're on 68 now, and I think it was like episode maybe 61 or 62. I can't remember, but it was not that long ago. And I sent him an apology. I was like, Rambo, this one was especially bad. I'm really sorry. I promise you I am trying to work on this. Sometimes I just get really in my head and get really excited, and it's rude. It's rude, and it's uncaring of the other person. But I just wasn't seeing it as that, because I was like, oh, HV's so excited to talk, oh, she needs to talk, let her talk, in my mind I'm like, I got something to say. But when I really digest it, it's like we all have something very important to say. It's not just you, Human Vibration, it's not just you who has got this idea, this hot, hot on the tongue, can't keep it in your mouth idea. So I'm trying to work on that, because all the best stuff comes from other people too. Like my most favorite podcast recently have been when we, like the listener spotlight ones, like this is not my stuff. This is totally other people coming in with all and this is my favorite material. So intellectually, I know that the best stuff comes when I zip it, and then I can add my little flavor through later, in interspersed between. This is,
but is
I'm
this
still learning.
But HV is this? I mean, you tell me, you're way more experienced in podcasting. When I do my little podcast for people, isn't this like the thing you kind of... someone has to be like the focus. Like when I interviewed like Russian Vids, there were so many things he was saying I wanted to be like, like, oh yeah, I can relate to that, but I just, I thought, no, I've got to make this as a Russian, people are tuning in to listen to Russian Vids. So I don't know is that always going to be the way with podcasting, that someone has to be slightly more in the spotlight than the other person? Like, do you get what I'm saying?
I mean, no matter what show I'm on, I steamroll everyone. I don't know if that's a me thing or a podcast thing, but I just get on and I just go. And I just go. So I have to work. Like if I'm a guest I was a guest on a podcast last night, and it hasn't been posted yet. But it was like five total people. I was including me. And in this podcast, it's like everybody talks. That's everybody talks. It's very conversational. Every single person. That's the style of the show. Well, you get me on the show, and I'm the only one who spoke. I'm like, I literally talked the entire time, and a few people peppered in. But after the host was like, this isn't usually how it goes. Usually we're all talking. And I was like, oh, damn, I did it again.
Don't be so hard on yourself.
But I do love talking. Okay, I will say, and I've written in this, I posted one of you and Rambo's conversations not that long ago, and I wrote in the notes, my favorite thing about the episode was how much room to breathe you gave Rambo. Like basically how you let him speak. I thought that was wonderful. I thought that was a wonderful thing. And I even wrote that. I was like, HV listens quietly to Les's, masterful silence. And I think that you ride that fine line between having something important to interject and biting your tongue because you know that it's maybe best for the other person to just let them finish the sentence. I'm still learning that. I'm still learning how to bite my tongue. I'm not very good at that, but I recognize the power in it. And I recognize that I'm leaving good stuff on the table. I'm losing out really good stuff by not leaving room for the magic. I'm not leaving room for the magic to come in. I need to leave some room.
Well, there you go. We got to try the fire stick thing.
We should.
Even with three people, yeah, because then it's even harder. But it's like a game, isn't it? You got to take notes, and then you got to do like the roll back. So let me just roll back to that thing you said 20 minutes ago, HV, when you said Morse code and and then Emily Moyer's really good at that. I've seen her. She's like really masterful at doing that. Like she's like the note taker of every podcast. And she'll let you go on for 30 minutes. She won't stop you, and then you have to say, I'm finished now. And then she'll go right back to the thing you said 30 minutes ago and be like, right, that thing you said about, it's like, wow, man, man, I don't know how she does it. I think she must be very
masterful.
Very, yeah. I don't think I could, because I'd go back to the top of my symbols about, what's that stick man I drew up there with a gun in his
why
hand?
did I circle this one word 8 times? Yeah. There's lots, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't have any background on podcasting. It's just, I like to listen to podcasts and I love to talk. And so this is kind of like a marriage of some interests and hobbies of mine, but I have a lot to learn if we're going to make this great. We've all got the key ingredient, and that is unique ways of seeing the world. A unique vision, a unique approach, a kind of a radically different way of expressing this reality we all share. And I think, you've got that, I've got that, Rambo's got that. So many people in the Realize Radio audience have that, and we see that whenever we bring listener spotlights on. But I think, so the key ingredient is solid. Now I just need to work on my skills. I need to work on my skills of this is a craft, podcasting and community creation and all this stuff. This is there's best practices, there's protocols, there's ways of doing things that are proven to be good and other ways that aren't so enjoyable. And I've got a lot of honing to do. Some work on making this great. But thankfully we've all got, because you can't really teach that way of thinking. You can't really teach someone to have that spark, that curiosity, that fire in their belly over a certain topic. You can't really learn that either, but you can learn all the rest of the stuff, and I'm trying to learn. First starts with not interrupting. First things first.
Right, HV, that's an hour. We said we'd do a quick one today.
Yes. Okay, perfect. We got an hour in. Awesome. It's Friday for me, Friday morning. Going to be a great day. Friday afternoon. Any plans? Anything exciting for this weekend ahead? Anything that you're working on? What's next on Les's to-do list?
So I usually work on weekends, but weirdly, the company that I subcontract for haven't got in touch with me this week. And I'm kind of like, should I message them? Should I just have a weekend off? Or are they just going to text me at like 9 o'clock and be like, oh, can you work tomorrow? I don't know. So I might have a weekend off for a change. But other than that, summer is hanging on, but it's definitely coming to an end. And the reality of me going back to Ukraine is now becoming more of a consideration now.
Oh, you think you're going to get back?
Possibly. I don't want to like excite people and say yeah. Right. Possibly. I think it's going to be a nightmare because of how locked down it is. But they don't want you doing what you did last time. Yeah. It'd be impossible, and as well because they divided it in north and south. Wherever you're going to go, the naysayers will say it's in the other part of the country, so you're not going to win.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know, but I'm looking for the first time in my life. I'm looking forward to winter.
Huh.
I used to hate winter, and now I'm really looking forward to spending some time indoors because I'm such an outdoorsy person. Like if the sun's shining in the morning, I'm off to the beach and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's hard work for me to go and like try and do content and stuff. When there's a sunny day, I feel really I can't do it. I pick sunshine over my internet presence all day long. But in the winter, hopefully it'll be very grey and I can not feel so bad about that.
I know exactly how you feel. That kind of, you hunker down, you know, it's horrible outside, cold, windy, raining, whatever, and you're just kind of inside, huddled up, you know, maybe got a mug of tea or coffee or cocoa or something, and you're just like in front of the computer or your iPad or your phone, and you can just spend some time doing this other world, you know, like I can really settle into posting some HV stuff. I've been really lazy on Twitter. I haven't really done anything on Twitter in a long time. I'm kind of, you know, I kind of do some stuff on Instagram. I'm also waiting, you know, in a way too, I'm also waiting for a reprieve of winter where I'm not tempted to spend every second that I have, you know, outside doing whatever, you know. I invite, I'm also looking forward to a time where I can spend more time doing what I have avoided doing in a way this summer. I have not really been tweeting all that much, and I have a feeling, yeah, once the winter comes around, I'm going to be a little bit more active on these channels. So I mean, that's always good.
I know we've spoke about this before, and I know, like, I'm with you. I hate YouTube, but with your slideshow presentation skills, you could kill it on YouTube, and that's like tapping into black gold. That's like tapping into, yeah, an oil reservoir. YouTube. It's obviously a place where you're censored.
About that more.
It's where you're censored the most as well. But if you could do the whole thing of just 10 minutes of free stuff and then say, come over to Patreon where I can talk freely and I can talk about scamdemics and vaccinations and this and that, because, yeah, I can confirm YouTube is a nightmare. All my best stuff, the second it goes up, after like 7 hours of trying to upload it, straight away I've taken down. Copyright strike, and I don't even tell you why.
Right. So that has intimidated me, that everyone's like, oh, they take everything off YouTube. But you're right, there's probably a way to do a bit of safe but yet interesting introduction into the material, and then drive people to Patreon for the rest. Because I do feel safe sharing. We haven't been flagged yet on Patreon, and we talk about everything. So, yeah, the censorship doesn't seem to, it seems... I just haven't, censorship, I'm playing that game. It's a lot of work too. The YouTube videos can be a lot of work, but you're right, I already have the presentations made. I can talk, I could deliver them in my sleep. I could just start recording this stuff, you know, and then drive people. I do need to be more proactive. I think because I have not made the leap yet, the leap that I have promised myself and promised the audience and promised everyone, what I've been talking about forever, I still haven't done. Mm-hmm. I still actually haven't stopped my quote-unquote real job yet. I'm like busier than ever. It's crazy. Yeah. It's insane. Like, as soon as I said I wasn't going to work this year, shit. Like, kind of like you. As soon as you say you're not going to, you know, you're not, I'm done, I'm out, you know, then it's like, pull you back in. And that's kind of how I have felt this year. And because of that, it's my excuse to not give Realize Radio and HumanVibration my full heart and attention. Because it's like, oh, well, I could do this, but I'm so busy with work. It's like, oh, I could do that. Oh, but I'm so busy with work. I need to yank that excuse out of my life. I need to. And I've done everything right. I've built up enough in savings to where if I do take a year off, I'm not going to get kicked out of my apartment. Like, nothing, barring being hit by a Mack truck, you know, barring that, I'll be okay. You know, it could be scary certain times, but I could be okay. I really have built everything. If I could just take a year off, just take the year off. You can do that, and then come back. You know, it's not like you're going to be insolvent. You know. Anyway, I can, but I just haven't. Mm-hmm. I literally can't, and I'm my boss. I've owned my own company for almost 10 years, and I am my own boss. But I'm a tough boss. I'm a tough boss. I won't even let myself take time off, you know? So I have to just figure out, it's not like I have anything holding me back. Nothing is holding me back other than myself, other than me.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm sure so many people have said this, but even like, see what you're just doing now. If you just had like in the mornings, like coffee time with HV, where you just go through ridiculous news stories, like for 30 minutes, people would love that. And I don't know. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's all down to you and what kind of life you want to have, innit? Because we know there's not really any money in this, and we do it because we love it. But it's whether you want to be that person every day and commit that much. I don't know. It's down to you, isn't it? Really, I'm pretty sure you know it'd be successful. This is
something that I would do, and I was doing regardless. I mean, we are making some income on the Patreon. It's not I split it with Rambo. It's not enough to pay either of our rents or anything like that. It's not livable. It's not sustainable in this way yet, but it's a seedling. It's a seedling that it's like a proof of concept almost. Like this is good. It may not be huge, but it's good, and that's what matters. That's what matters, and then it can grow. If it's good, it can grow. And I would like this to be my full-time job in some way, but I would have to do more of it. I have to, like you said, in the mornings, it would have to be like coffee with take like something, do something in the morning, do something in the afternoon, backfill with all my Insta stuff, regular episodes, here. But I could do that, and I really could, and I think that there could be a way to monetize it. I don't know what exactly that looks like now, but maybe that leads. I've always said I'll write a book. I've always said that, and I haven't. I haven't even written one word of one chapter of one page or anything. I haven't done that, but theoretically I could. And then if you write a book, I could sell that. That's monetization, and that all comes in from this world, from exposing my work to new listeners, and to if they like maybe they'll buy the book, and there's all these different avenues. I never. Because I have owned my own business for a while, I don't think I could ever work for someone else again. I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could have anybody else be my boss ever again. But if I could be successful at this, I could be my own boss. I could be my own boss in this world and just like be the, I don't know. But I do want I want to like create, again, like proof of concept. I want to prove that you can create a lane with this type of thinking, and
Yep.
and maybe we start our own little universe. We start our own little slice of the pie.
Yeah.
Bake our own pie. We don't need a slice of their pie. We just need to bake our own pie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is what we're kind of doing right now. And you're a big part of that, Les. You're a big, big part of that.
I'm sure I sometimes think Real Eyes Radio's guys must be sick of hearing me, but I think
God, no. I think they're sick of hearing me. What's going on? I bet she's going to interrupt again.
But I'm the fifth Beatle.
No, you're the third Beatle. No, you're definitely our most frequent guest voice, and we love you. And I know everyone in the audience loves you. So, I mention you on every single podcast I ever go on. Shout out to Les. Shout out to Les. Shout out to Les Luther. Shout out to Les. He went there. You're very important to me. You're very important to me because you did the thing. You did the thing that everybody talks about. Even me. I had this big idea that I was going to go to Boulder, Colorado, and confront the sheriff's department and talk to them about John Bonet not existing. I had this, and then lockdown, and then because I discovered it in January, and then by March everything was locked down, so I couldn't. There was nobody at the sheriff's department at that point. There was no anyway. So, but I had that, and I didn't do it, and it always kind of got me. And I had a trip planned to New York in March, and I wanted to go to New York and show that all the hospitals weren't full, and I didn't go. I chickened out. But you did it. You did the thing, and that always, to me, I was like, God, he did it. He did the thing, and you should be really proud of that. Nobody else did it. Nobody else did it. And some people did it where they show themselves in the action on the 4D. The 4D illusion ride, essentially, as you've been so great at pointing out on Twitter. Could you explain real quick before we jump off? I know I said we could only do an hour, but
oh wait, we can go however long you want. Go on.
Can you explain to me how you came up with the 4D illusion? Describe that and explain that a little bit in depth. I love that concept.
There are different categories of theme park rides, and one of them is called an illusion ride, or sometimes it's called a dark ride or an immersive ride. But we all know it's the ride where there's a 4D element. So the good one is the Jurassic Park ride, where there might be like an animation of a dinosaur jumping in the water, but then real water would come over and splash in your face and give you the real sense that there was a dinosaur there and splash. That's the 4D element. Another classic one is like the pirate ride, where your seat would shake left to right as you're going over a wave, and a jet of air would come into your face. It's the 4D element is sensory. Okay? Touch, sight, smell, And I'm saying that most of these things have to have, this is what illusion warfare is. It's a 4D experience. It's not enough just to have a psychological element of saying something's happening. You have to have a 4D element to bring the psyop to life. I.e., you want to say you're under attack from Muslims, you've got to drop 2 towers in New York. You want to say there's a war zone in Kiev, you've got to play air raid sirens and have an artillery gun in the distance firing into empty fields. It's not enough just to say something's happening on the black cube. You have to add a 4D element that people can really touch and will always remember. Like a tank driving down the street, an ambulance shooting down the street. People will always remember that as the real component of the psyop. Of course it was real. I saw a tank. I touched it. I touched the cold steel on my fingertips. Of course there was a war. I was stood in a train station for 20 hours in the freezing cold. I remember it. It was real. And I'm saying that realness is exactly the same as a 4D illusion ride that you would find at a theme park.
It's like this. Yep, those air raid sirens overhead. Everyone in town gets that visceral experience of war,
and they've been around for a long.
Feels real.
Since the Victorian times, they used to do they're called scenic railways, or sometimes it'd just be a static railway where you'd go on a train, and you'd sit there and have a cup of tea on the train, and people would come outside and rock the train, like you were moving, and they'd close the curtains, they would change all the scenery, and then it'd be like a Roman. You get out on the Roman stop, you go back in, have another cup of tea, you'd shake it side to side, and you get out, you'd be in Egyptian land.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like Westworld.
Right,
Even arriving on the train into this land, yeah. Oh boy.
And it really is.
You always bring the best stuff to the table.
It really is that simple. I like I said earlier, there's a whole range of very high-tech things, but the most simplest are the most effective. And that's the illusion that you're experiencing something that you're not. And it really is that simple. Standing in the queue, air raid sirens. There was no bomb, you just heard an air raid siren. There was no virus, you just wore a mask and stood in the queue outside the supermarket.
Yep. And masks, part of the wearing of the masks invite us to be participants in the theater.
That's your costume. That's your LARPing costume.
That's your costume, yeah. And nobody realizes it, but that's exactly what it is. I mean, we realize it now. Oh, boy. Well, Les, this was amazing. Thank you for being you. Thank you for your time, and thanks. I like that we go dark. I like that a good portion of this episode is about waterboarding. Not what I anticipated talking about today, but you just never know where we're going to go. How deep or dark we're going to go. Yeah. It's usually like existentialism,
Yeah.
Or
nihilism.
Human torture.
I think you can have positive nihilism where you just kind of like throw your hands up in the air and have fun with it. Like positive nihilism.
Whee!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if that darkness is true, let's have fun with it, man. Let's might as well be what we want to be. We might as well be podcasters and investigators. Why not? If what you're saying is true about the darkness, then fuck it, So you can have positive nihilism for sure.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah, because the idea of the big nihilist thinkers, the original everything is fake sort of thing, is depressing as all get out.
Yeah.
Nothing matters. Not your family, not your friends, not your life, not any choice you'll ever make. Nothing matters. And we're kind of on the other side of that, where in a way it's like, no, actually every choice you do influences this game. Choose wisely, and choose with, and I think we're kind of eliminating the bad choices by thinking in this way. Like we have a whole new set of choices to choose from, that we can like make our own adventure when we're not beholden to these ways of thinking and ways of being that we've been, taught and told our whole lifetime.
Yeah.
There's almost like a freeing up, like, oh my gosh, I could do this type of thing I could follow my passion and just say, fuck it to the establishment and just do this for my life instead of this established career that I've built for the past 14 years of my life. That sounds so wildly irresponsible. When I tell my mom I'm thinking about, doing HV stuff full time, she's like, well, what about this? And what about that? And what about this? And what about that? And of course, that's how her mind thinks, because she can't imagine anything outside of this traditional way of doing things. But yeah, I don't know. I think the world really is our oyster, and it is up to us to make the best of it. And That is what matters.
Like your dog over there, like dogs are a great example of like how to do it right. Like dogs don't care about time. They don't give a fuck. They're not worried about tomorrow. They're not worried about yesterday. They live in the moment. If they want to go lick a bowl, they'll go and do it. They're not worried about what other dogs will think. They're not worried about what might happen in 10 days' time. They live in the moment. Dogs are without time. Yeah. And they're a good example of how to live.
We don't deserve dogs. We don't deserve them. They're too good for us. My dogs do live a wonderful life. They live in the moment for sure. And my life kind of revolves around them. I don't have kids, so they're my children. My two dogs are they get all of my extra attention, energy, and love I mentioned, we talked earlier about talking to ourselves. Like, do I have a running conversation with myself? I talk to my dogs a lot. From the second I wake up, like I'm having a conversation with them as if they are my compatriots in this life. As if they're answering me back. I have like in-depth conversations with them, asking them questions and pretending that I get feedback from them and pretending that I have an answer from them and continuing on. Some might say that it's time for me to have a psychological evaluation. And I would say, you're probably not wrong, but I'm having a good time with it, so. All right, Les. Well, as always, this is wonderful. We'll talk soon.
Okay, take care.
Record.